Welcome to Satsang, and thank you for the beautiful, beautiful chanting. The difference between chanting kirtan and chanting the names of God compared to just singing along with a song that you like on the radio is, it's not only the content. I mean, yes, obviously one is about God and one could be about anything. But it's not just a difference in content. Because sometimes the songs on the radio are actually about very nice, spiritually things as well. But when we sing kirtan, when we sing the names of God, it actually causes a vibrational change in our own bodies that is completely different than just singing along to a song that you like, even if the song is spiritual. And so, even though it may feel as you're doing it like you're just singing along to something that's beautiful and you like it, be aware on a more subtle level as you do it of actually the way that it's impacting both the physical body and also the subtle body. Because that kirtan, that jap, that nad yoga, that yoga of sound, chanting of the name of God, the Nam, is something that impacts us very, very deeply energetically. And so be aware of that as you do it. It's not just music, it's actually a spiritual practice. We'll begin satsang as we always do with one of our questions that has come to us in advance, and then I'll open it up to any questions that anyone here or any of our viewers online have. How do I know I am walking on the right path? This is actually a more complex question than it seems on the surface. And the reason is, if you're simply talking about the path to a physical destination, if I want to walk from here to Chotiwala, all I have to do is ask someone, "Acha Chotiwala kaise pahunchna?" How do I get to Chotiwala? Or if maybe I know already, or maybe I have a map, maybe I have Google Maps. It's going to show me, "Acha, you walk on this road and you keep going about 400 meters and you will hit Chotiwala." And if along the way, if 20 meters or 50 meters or 200 meters down the way, I'm not sure, and I want to know, am I on the right path? Again, all I have to do is say to someone, "Acha, is this the right path to Chotiwala? How much longer to Chotiwala?" And it's very simple. And either they'll say, yeah, keep going. Or they'll say, "Oh, you took the wrong turn, back, vapas jao, make the other turn." But it's a very clear physical destination, which means that the pathways are very clear and physical. Sometimes there's more than one option, sometimes there's only one option, but either way you can measure whether you're on the right path because you can measure your distance. If Chotiwala is 400 meters from here, well, as I walk, my GPS, or the people I ask along the way, should show that those numbers keep getting smaller and smaller. So it goes from 400 meters to 300 meters to 200 meters to 50 meters, and I know, "Acha, I'm getting closer." The problem comes when we try to apply the same tools to walking the path of our life for many reasons. First of all, we're not going to a physical destination. I mean, at least most of us are not that shallow. Some people, their destination may simply be, I want to be a millionaire or a billionaire. Okay, well that's superficial and tangible enough that actually you could probably measure that very similarly to you measure your path to Chotiwala. Well, today I have 10 rupees, tomorrow I have 1,000 rupees, the next day I have 10,000 rupees. Okay, I'm getting closer to being a millionaire. Slowly, but I'm getting closer. But when my destination, when my goal is actually something deeper and subtler than Chotiwala or just the accumulation of a certain number of rupees or dollars, you can't measure the path or the destination as easily. Because a lot of it, for example, along the way may feel like you're going backwards. And this is especially true, interestingly, on a spiritual path. For a lot of us, when we begin a spiritual path, when we first walk off of the normal, like eat, drink, and be merry and accumulate possessions and degrees path of life, onto a path of spirituality, it feels really good. It's like this balm for the soul. And we feel like, okay, where before I was so negative, or I was so materialistic, or I was so separate, now, God, doesn't this feel good? But then, as we start to walk that path more, and regardless of what your specific destination may be, whether you're going to enlightenment, or you're wanting to have samadhi, or you just want to have a deeper spiritual experience, or you want to be as devoted as Hanuman, or you want to be as pure in your love for God as Radha, or whatever our different goals may be, as we walk that path, the beginning, we first start doing yoga, we first start chanting jap, we first start meditating, and again, it feels, this balm, yeah. But then as we keep going, as we actually start peeling back layers of the not self, what ends up happening is we're face to face with aspects of ourself that we don't want to look at. We're face to face with our egos. We're face to face with our desires, our fears, our grudges. We're face to face with patterns from our lives. We're face to face with patterns from childhood, hurts from childhood. Things that we've been really successfully kind of pushing away. And first we push them away in our perhaps more superficial life, in our friend circle, in our academics, in our career, in our gym going, in our clothes buying, in whatever way we did it. And we actually were probably able to do it for a while. But spirituality isn't going to let us off so easily. Spirituality isn't going to allow any corner of our psyche to be left unexamined. It's not going to allow any corner of our psyche to be left in the dark. Because as we peel back these layers and we open ourselves, spirituality is going to force us to look at all of that we weren't looking at before. And that's not always fun. And so a lot of times you feel like you're going backwards because suddenly it's like, oh my God, I'm having having that problem again, or oh my God, I'm facing this again, or oh my God, that's up again. And it's up because you've looked at it. If you've got a wound and it's festering, you can stick a Band-Aid on it. You can stick a nice dress on top of that Band-Aid. You can take ibuprofen and pills to deal with the pain. And if you take enough ibuprofen and you wear enough nice long-sleeved clothes and you have good Band-Aids, you actually can forget for a while that there is this wound. But when spirituality says, you're not going to go another step until you get naked, literally and physically and figuratively. So spirituality pulls off the clothes. It says, no more pills. No more pills. We're no longer medicating our pain. No more pills. Pulls off the Band-Aid. Well, now you've got this wound. Finally, so you can deal with it. But there's going to be a period of time in which that wound is hurting you a lot more than it's hurt you for a while. And so it may feel like you're going backwards. Another way it may feel like you're going backwards, I was reading the foreword to a book that someone had given me, and the foreword was written by this very, very brilliant synthesizer of the spiritual world and the psychological world. And I can't take credit for his ideas, so I'm saying it comes from his foreword, but it was so brilliant I want to share it with you. He said, when we get on a spiritual path and we find a guru, a lot of us want the guru who's the one who just makes our egos feel really good. We want the guru who says, exactly what you're doing, that's exactly what you should be doing. You are perfect, you are wonderful, you are divine, and who just kind of does this. And I forget the terms, but in the foreword he actually had specific kind of funny but a little bit pejorative terms for the two different types of gurus. So the one was the one who just made us feel really good. However you are, you're perfect. And the other one was the one who didn't let us get away quite so easily, who was always going to hold our face up to that mirror of our own egos, of our own wounds, of our own shortcomings. Because of course, remember, the shortcomings are not a shortcoming of the soul. The guru's not saying you are impure, you are broken, you are not divine, or you're only half divine. It's not that. It's you've got all this junk that is preventing you from seeing the divinity of who you are, the fullness of who you are, the wholeness of who you are. And I'm not going to let you live like that. Yeah, I'm going to call a spade, and that's what that is. And this is your ego, and this is your ignorance, and this is that. And here's what's keeping you back over here, and here's what's keeping you back over there. And this foreword was so brilliant because he was talking about how we hate that. And this is why these days so many people are, guru shopping. Somebody was asking last night or the night before about how do I find the right guru? Well, if all you're looking for is someone who's going to go, you're perfect. Well, yeah, you can shop for one like that. But that's probably not what you need for your path. Because the path of opening and awakening is not one about keeping those clothes on us and saying, oh, what a beautiful long sleeve dress, what a beautiful Band-Aid. Ibuprofen, yeah, that's great. So glad you're taking that to deal with your pain. No problem. Yeah, keep taking it. The guru's going to say no. This is blocking you. Some of the gurus may rip the Band-Aid off themselves. Sometimes the universe, just on a spiritual path, does it. A friend of mine was telling me her husband, after he came to India, when he was in India, he sat in Ganga and prayed to Ganga to take his spiritual path to a whole nother level, to just remove the ego and take him to a whole nother level. So about a week after they get back, he's literally at death's door. And was there, and she didn't know, by the way, that he had made this prayer to Ganga. And spent the next, year or 2 years maybe dealing with what was it that he was suffering from. The doctors couldn't diagnose it. He had so many different symptoms and literally was dying. And just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Finally, he told her that he actually had prayed to Ganga to take him to this whole other level, and she did. And eventually, he found the right doctor. Eventually, he was treated and cured and whatnot. But in that state of almost losing his life and watching it with doctors not being able to figure out what was going on for a couple of years, watching himself just fall apart, took him to that place. And she was laughing. She was saying, I'm going to kill him for asking Ganga for this. But this is what happens when we really want to progress spiritually. It's not always fun. It doesn't always feel good. And so when we go back to the question of how do I know I'm on the right path, well, it's not because it always feels good. A lot of people think, well, this doesn't feel good, it must not be right. And I always go back, for me, the clearest example for this in terms of unequivocalness. You cannot say this is my perspective or someone else's, is the Bhagavad Gita. Right? It's given to us as Shastra. Arjuna was not having fun. Arjuna was not interested in fighting that war. Even 700 verses later, after Bhagavan Krishna has explained everything to him, he did it. But it wasn't that after those 700 verses he said, oh, thank you for showing me how much fun this is. Thank you for showing me how good this feels. Thank you for, removing my doubts and showing me how actually much I'm really enjoying myself. It was thank you for clearing my doubts and showing me so that I know this is the path I need to walk. It still isn't fun. It still doesn't feel good. I still don't want to do it. I'm still not enjoying it. But I now realize through your grace, through these 700 verses, why I have to. And if you ever needed proof of the fact that walking the right path does not always feel good, read the Gita, read the Ramayana. Whether it's Lord Ram, whether it's King Dashrath, whether it's Sita. I mean, we're given not just one, but we're given so many different examples of, oh yeah, that must have felt horrible. Oh God, that's not the way things should have turned out. But we're given these scriptures, I deeply believe, for our own lives. To always hold up our life against and say, oh yeah, Sita didn't think that was so much fun. Oh yeah, she probably didn't enjoy that part. But that was the path she was supposed to walk. And so how do we know it's the right path then? How do we know if it's not that it's fun, if it's not that it feels good? And I'm not saying it's never fun. I'm not saying it never feels good, but that just can't be the yardstick that we use to determine. So what is? Well, when you're walking the right path, not necessarily day by day, but certainly year by year, you should be able to be to clearly recognize a growth in the self, an opening in the self, a blossoming of the self. Not necessarily an accumulation of wealth. It's not, if I'm a good spiritual person, I will get rich. If I'm a good spiritual person, I will get the job I want. No. So don't use those yardsticks. If I'm a good spiritual person, my kids will marry the right people. Not those. But if I'm walking my path, year by year, I will be more blossomed. I will give more of the fragrance that is in me. I will have found ways in order to give that fragrance more and more to the world. Where the fragrance used to be just stuck inside me, I will find more and more that I am able to give my fragrance to the world more and more frequently, in more and more different ways. So that's one way, is that the nature of who I am is opening. There are less parts of me that are repressed, that are oppressed, that I can't look at, that I feel badly about. I'm living with less shame. I'm living with less not enoughness. I'm year by year more and more aware of the fact that I am enough, that who I am is worthy of occupying my place on planet Earth. That simply in my beingness, I am right. A way of knowing it's not your right path is if you find yourself every day running more and more to feel an internal sense of worthiness. As we blossom spiritually, and I'm assuming and hoping that the question is my right path spiritually. So I'm gonna read it like that. As we walk our spiritual path, who we are opens and blossoms. And again, as I began with, sometimes the ego rears its ugly head and we are back where we were before we even started meditating. Back where we were before we started doing yoga. Back where we were before we met the guru. That's the ego beneath the Band-Aid. That's here I am so that you and I can finally come face to face. Here I am because you're now ready to deal with me. You weren't strong enough then. You weren't grounded enough then. You weren't anchored enough then. You needed to keep me suppressed. But here I am now, because you and I are now able to deal with this, eye to eye. So it's going to come up. But year by year, you are more and more open, more and more grounded, more and more able to find and to share your own fragrance, more and more aware of your enoughness, your inherent, innate enoughness. Now, that doesn't mean that we stop trying to do things. As Lord Krishna made very clear in the Gita, to do is our nature. We cannot live without performing karma. Even if you sit on your hands, close your mouth, close your eyes, you're still performing karma. To act is our nature. So it's not that I no longer act, I still act, but instead of acting in order to prove myself or acting in order to fulfill a desire, acting in order to get something, I act because it's my duty. It's my dharma. Because I'm a tool in God's hands. And so I'm less worried about what am I going to get for it. Before we're on the right path, it always is about what am I going to get. Give and take, 50-50. And you find yourself complaining. I know one of the things that we always used to complain about growing up is this balance. Like I'm the one who gives so much. I do this for this one, and whether it's a friend, whether it's a boyfriend, whatever it is, we're always complaining. Family member. I always do this. I always give this. I'm the one. But I don't feel like I get enough back. The complaint of when you're not on the right path. Because when you are on the right path, we stop looking to others for the reward of what I'm doing. So whether it's others who are going to pay me, who are going to actually hand me something, money in exchange, or a reward in exchange, or even people who are just going to appreciate me. People are going to say, wow, you're so great. We stop looking for that because the doing as that instrument in God's hands becomes its own reward. And so it stops being about how much am I going to get, what am I going to get? Is this the right move on my career path? Am I actually going up and not horizontally or backwards? That's how we judge the next rung on our ladder when we're not on the spiritual path. But when we are in the spiritual path, it's not about the next rung of my career, or next rung financially, or next rung socially, or politically, or power, whatever we're looking for. It's the next step to help me peel back my layers more, to help me open more, to help me find my fragrance and share my fragrance more. So year by year, that's what we find. Lastly, I mean, I could go on with this question all night, but lastly, we find more and more, even though it's not why we do it, and that's an important thing to remember, not why we do it, but nonetheless we find more and more that more and more people are drawn to us. Just to be in our presence. We draw more and more love to us. And that happens because as you are walking a spiritual path, as you're opening and unfolding, you become a much clearer vessel, and therefore a vessel with more space for the divine grace. So it's not that you become greater and therefore people love you. It's just that you become clearer, and therefore there's more room inside you for this grace that we're all being showered with. And when that happens, everybody wants to be around grace. Everybody wants to be around divinity and joy and clarity and love. And so we start to become more and more transmitters of love. And what we find is that kind of draws more love to us automatically. But again, it's really important that we're not going into it for that. Because then it's the same thing. Then just instead of looking for money, I'm looking for people. But it's still, I'm looking for something outside. But it happens automatically. And so if you find year by year that even people who you wouldn't necessarily consider friends, they're not people you hang out with or that you've necessarily done something for, but just that people are in general are drawn to you, want to be with you or learn from you or help you, whatever it may be. It's because you're becoming a clearer vessel, because that fragrance is more and more, and people are drawn to it. So those are all ways to know. Before going on more and more about that, or taking any of the other questions that have come in advance, I'm happy to open it up to any questions here. Yeah.
I just want to ask, what are your views on doing meditation after consumption of cannabis?
He said, what are your views on meditating after taking cannabis? I'm pretty much, in general, not in favor of the use of drugs. And the reason being, you have to make a decision. It's not that they don't feel good, or that certainly some of them feel good. It's not that some of them don't give us what we actually are wanting. We want to feel good, we want to be calm, we want to be in peace, we want to be happy. Well, if I can smoke something or swallow a pill that's going to make me feel like that, okay. The problem with that is that at that point you really have to make a decision, which is either I'm going to spend the rest of my life smoking this or taking these pills, or I'm going to figure out how to do it without the drugs. And if you are prepared to spend the rest of your life, pretty much all day, every day, under the influence of drugs, that's your choice, okay. But if at some point you are aware that you're going to want to stop using the drugs and ultimately experience that without the drugs, then why not start that now? Because you're going to have to do it at some point. And the more dependent you become on the drug giving you that easy way in, the harder it's going to be to sit down and meditate without it. And so I'm pretty much never in favor, unless someone says, I've decided I'm just going to spend every hour of the rest of my life on drugs. Okay. I mean, literally, I'm very clear that I am not the spiritual police. I'm not the moral police. Until and unless someone comes and says to me specifically, tell me what to do. Do you think that is a good decision or not? Until and unless they ask me that, I'm not going to overstep boundaries and say, I'm not quite sure that's such a good decision, or what, are you crazy? So if someone has decided that they're prepared to spend every hour of the rest of their life on drugs, they have, all right, their decision. Again, not a decision I would take, not a decision I would recommend, but certainly a decision that we're all free to do. But I have yet to meet anyone who says that. Pretty much what everyone says is, well, I'm just doing it for now. Then I will do it without the drugs. And if that's the case, do it without the drugs now. It's not going to get any easier. It's not like your ego says, oh, well, you've been smoking cannabis for 10 years. All right, I'll go easy on you when you finally stop. Or that your ego says, oh, all right, you've been doing drugs for all these years. Okay, when you finally stop, I'm going to make this one easygoing. And if you doubt that, check in with people who are dealing with recovering from drug addictions. I have yet to meet anyone who says, oh yeah, it was really easy. I had done it for so long that my ego was perfectly prepared to just kind of let it go and grant me the samadhi without the drugs. It's miserable. Overcoming drug addiction is miserable. It requires not just an incredible amount of tenacity, an incredible amount of sweat, but an incredible amount of grace. Why walk a path consciously and knowingly that is not the destination you want to end up, just because temporarily along the way it feels good? So I'm always going to say, stay away from drugs. And this is true even with regard to drugs like cannabis, unless the only way that I would say, okay, I support the use of it, is it has proven to be very, very powerful and successful medically in dealing with issues of pain in terms of frequently terminal illnesses that people cannot get relief from pain otherwise. It has proven to be very, very successful in dealing with side effects of chemotherapy, with nausea and a lot of other side effects that people who are suffering from cancer and going through chemotherapy have. Those are the only conditions that I would say, if you can get relief from this. I mean, people are taking hardcore prescription drugs anyway. So it's not that they're going all natural anyway. And if the choice is morphine or marijuana, they're both drugs. So those are the only conditions that I would feel comfortable saying, yes, I support that. Otherwise, I would always say, if you're going to meditate after taking cannabis, why not meditate before it? Why not use the meditation? Get your meditation strong enough. Clear out of your life, out of your mind, whatever it is that is making the meditation without the cannabis difficult. Reach that state. The rishis, the sages, the saints, they didn't need chemical assistance. The path is there. Walk the path, and if you find that your own mind, your own thoughts are too much of an obstacle, well, yeah, join the club. Welcome to being human. Work with them. These are what we've been given, all of the techniques, psychological techniques, spiritual techniques. Work with them. But don't think that the solution lies in just getting high and then meditating. Because eventually you come down. So either you have to just get high again, or you better figure out how to do it without the marijuana. So why not figure that out from the beginning? Any other questions? Yes.
So, walking in a path, the consciousness, as you say, it denotes us when we are in wrong.
I'm sorry, it?
It denotes us when we are in wrong path. But still we overtake with the confidence. So, how can we overcome all these things?
How do we overcome the confidence when we're on the wrong path? That confidence stems not from a deep inner voice, but that confidence stems from the ego. It stems from our narrow vision. It stems from the games of the ego. So for example, there's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance that explains very, very beautifully how we adjust our mind in order to rationalize what we do. So here's how it works. Let's say that I smoke cigarettes. And I know smoking cigarettes is going to kill me. Okay, so every time I smoke cigarettes then, I feel very bad. Because my mind says, this is going to kill you, this is wrong, this is bad. But my body is addicted to it. So it creates this inner conflict, this inner dissonance. That doesn't feel good. So I try to quit smoking. Doesn't work. Keep trying. Doesn't work. Eventually, my mind is going to start saying, it's not so bad. That's all propaganda. My friend's grandmother smoked 2 packs a day till she was 90. Nothing happened to her. It's not true that tobacco kills. That's all a myth. Why? Because that inner conflict is so much between doing something that I know isn't right. So either we have to change our actions, or I have to change my thought. So if I'm walking a path that is the wrong path, but it's a path that for any reason I don't want to stop walking, whether because I'm physically addicted, whether because my ego loves it, whether because it's too scary to leave the path, whether because I'm so overcome by desires and desires that I have to keep staying on this path because I want the things, whatever it may be. If I'm not able to change my actions and get myself off the path, eventually my mind that says to me this is the wrong path is going to stop saying that. And so eventually my mind, in order to create dissonance in me, my mind is going to change how it thinks. And it's going to start to say, yeah, this is the right path. All those other spiritual people, they don't know what they're doing. They just live in ashrams all day. Unko kuch pata hi nahi hai. It'll make up all kinds of excuses. All kinds of rationalizations. In order for there to be this synergy, this consonance, this marriage between what I do and what I think. So that's why. But this is very dangerous. Because this is when our mind starts to actually be our enemy. Where in the beginning our mind was saying, stop smoking, it'll kill you. Now our mind has become an agent of the addiction. So it becomes very dangerous. And this is why it is so important when there is that inner conflict between what I'm doing and what I'm thinking, to allow yourself to sit there with the conflict, to actually look at it, to witness it, and to say, wow, there's this conflict, okay. What's it coming from? I've tried to quit smoking, I can't quit smoking. My mind is starting to tell me smoking isn't such a big deal. Is that right? And to really allow yourself to sit with that. To sit with that overconfidence that's building, that's starting to say, yeah, this wrong path is right. It's okay. Go, more. Do it. And to have the courage to look within and to realize it's not right. And that's scary. Because if I've tried to change my actions and I haven't been able to yet, that fear of failure is very scary. But we have to face it. Or we'll never be able to walk the right path. So realize that overconfidence is just a game of the mind. And this is where gurus, this is where spiritual practices, this is where spiritual writings are so powerful and so helpful. Because they keep taking us back on the right path. They keep showing us what the wrong path is. And reminding us, regardless of how overconfident I've become. Wonderful.
I have a short question.
Okay. We'll take this as the last question.
In the example you gave, when you walk on the spiritual path, your old wounds are open. What do you do about it?
Okay. So when we walk on the spiritual path and our old wounds are open, what do we do about them? Well, here's what's actually so beautiful about wounds. And this is true about physical wounds as well as about internal wounds. Giving them the air to breathe is a very important, powerful first step to healing. When you have a wound, Yeah, you want to keep it clean, but you also want to air it. If you don't give that wound some air, it's going to fester. They need some oxygen. They need some air to breathe. They need a little bit of sunshine. Chalo dup de do, right? Give it a little bit of air. Similarly with our internal wounds. When we open them, a lot of times the wounds feel worse than they are because we have kept them suppressed for so long. And a lot of times the wounds have been there for so many years that we think they are bigger than they are. We think they're worse than they are because we've kept them covered. We've told ourselves over and over again, I can't look at that, I can't look at that, keep it covered. It's too painful. And we don't even give ourselves the benefit of the doubt of actually being able to look at it. So we look at it, first of all. Second of all, we have compassion for the being, the us, who was the one who was wounded. Because it's not the us of today. If that wound has been there for several years, for more than several years in many cases, since childhood in many cases, depending on how long it's been there, that being is no longer us. We've changed. If it happened more than 7 or 8 years ago, every single cell of our body has changed. That's not the us who was wounded. We are not the us who was wounded, but we have compassion for the us who was wounded. Whether it was a young child decades ago, whether it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, however long ago it was, we have compassion for the us who experienced that wound, who was hurt, who was abused, who was injured, who was betrayed. And we internally embrace that being. From a place now, remember, it's not us. I'm sitting here today, able to look at my wounds from childhood. But I don't experience them as I'm being wounded today. So what I've got is I've got the me of today who's able to actually literally embrace the me who was wounded. With love and compassion, to look at her inside, to close my eyes and look at her inside and say, I'm so sorry, sweetheart, that should not have happened. I'm so sorry you went through that. Should not have happened. And look, you survived. Look, you made it. Look, you didn't die. Look, here you are. You're still here today. And so you literally develop a practice looking within the self. A closed eye, meditative, introspective conversation with the self who was wounded. Not with just the wound itself, but with the you who experienced the wound. Reach out to him. However long ago it happened, the you today has got something to offer him. You've got a wisdom. You've got a strength. You've got a resilience that you can offer him. You've got a compassion. You've made it through that. Offer that to him. Reach out to him. Hey buddy, I'm so sorry that happened. Shouldn't have happened. You were a good guy. That should not have happened to you. But look, you made it. Here we are today. Even though we were wounded, we were harmed, we made it. Look how strong we are together. And just have that conversation with yourself. You're going to discover a part of yourself that you've always kept kind of hidden and afraid of. Because that part of yourself was always so identified with the wound. Next, forgive whoever wounded you. That doesn't mean what they did was okay. Doesn't mean we say, oh, no problem. But we forgive the doer of it. Because otherwise that wound won't heal. It's a very interesting and ironic aspect of inner wounds. Until we forgive the person who wounded us, you cannot actually heal. It's an important non-negotiable criterion. You have to forgive the person who wounded you. And yeah, it stings. But if you've ever had a physical wound cleaned by your mom or a nurse, it always stings. They put Savlon on it, they put Dettol on it, they put alcohol swab on it, whatever they do, it always stings. It always burns. But it's necessary. Cannot just stick a Band-Aid on a dirty wound. It'll never heal. It'll get infected. You've got to clean it. It always burns. So it may sting, it may burn, it may hurt to try to forgive that person. But you've got to do it. And again, that doesn't mean what they did was okay. We're not condoning the act. We're forgiving the being who committed the act because they were suffering. They were suffering in their own arrogance, their own illusion, their own pain. That's why they hurt you. People in peace don't hurt people. People in love don't hurt people. People in pain hurt people. So you forgive them. And between embracing the you who was hurt, opening up that wound and really looking at it, and forgiving the one who wounded you, you'll discover that automatically that wound starts to heal. Just starts to heal automatically. It's a very beautiful process, actually. But you've got to get the Band-Aid off it. You've got to have that courage. Whether you're one of those people who, just wants it ripped off all at once, or whether you want to pull it off slowly, slowly, slowly. Either way, there's not a right way to pull it off. But you do have to pull it off. Wonderful. Have a beautiful night, everyone. Beautiful evening. Join us all tomorrow morning at 6:30 for our International Day of Yoga celebration on the banks